Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this game, it was against one of our fellow Chesco members. This will be this week's simul, right? So I played against none other than Aron. Let's get to it. So I was white, our friend Aron was black. So c4, e5, knight c3, knight c6. So notice, usually you see things from my perspective, right? Usually you'll see them flipboard, you'll see the game from my perspective. But I also want to take you through a lens on my opponent's perspective, because it's always good to see the game from your opponent's perspective and just see what they have to offer, right? Because when you look at the board from different ways, you see some different things, and that's important when it comes to decision making. So after d3, knight f6, g3, so our friend Aron is doing everything right, just developing, right? Knight f3, now I'm threatening something, knight takes e5, and here I believe the most accurate move should be knight to d4. Saying that if you take on e5, I'm going to take on g2. If you take on d4, same thing will happen. And if you do nothing, then I will take on f3. That's a good move. Another move is d6. d6 just protecting this e5 pawn, saying you cannot take e5. Queen to a4 happens. So now I try to make things tricky again. Now here's the thing. After d6, I can probably castle as well. I mean, there are so many moves here, it's just a matter of preference. So I just play queen to a4. You notice that I'm sort of playing tricks, and the reason is because I want to apply pressure here, right? So what is my threat? My threat is knight takes e5, saying if you take on e5, well, bishop takes knight. And that is going to be a very interesting combination. So queen d7 happens. Our friend Aron knows it all. And now b4 comes. So now I'm trying to say, not only am I here to pressure this diagonal, I'm here to expand. So after bishop to e7, I castle. Our friend Aron castles. Bishop to g5. And after rook a to d8, this comes a very interesting sequence. So rook a d1, queen c8, but now there's knight d5. So, how do we think black could have really crawled out of this mess here? Well, first of all, to me, I kind of felt like this rook didn't belong on, well, you could say it belonged on d8, but the thing is, this bishop g5 move that I made is critical for one reason, is that I'm not allowing black to ever play d5 again. Because if black plays d5, it used to be that it would be a trade of knights and pawns. But now after c takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, there is the move knight to h4. Saying if you go back to d7, I'm going to take on e7. Queen takes e7. How about this? That made it a little obvious, but let's say queen to e6. Bishop takes e7, knight takes, and bishop takes bishop. So a lot of things tricky on this diagonal, so that's why d5 cannot be played. So what can be played, right? Rook f d8, well, the problem is d5 will still never be achieved, because if, let's say, the knight is removed, the knight can capture d5 and all will be well for white. So what would be the move I would recommend here? Well, I would suggest black should no longer go for a push of d5. And I think Aron's idea is very interesting as well. Rook d8 followed by queen to c8. I actually like that idea, however, it's just a little bit slow. A little bit. Because of the move knight to d5. So, I would say after rook a to d1, maybe go for something like h6, or I would go with rook d to e8, because here's the thing, if knight to d5 happens, well, it won't happen now, because um, for now the bishop is defended, and like, there's no sort of attack on the bishop or whatsoever. It just kind of feels like number one, h6 is in the air. But the interesting thing is that the most important thing about rook d to e8 is that not only does it give a spot for this guy, it also protects this bishop. And let me show you why it needs to be protected. So here after queen to c8, knight to d5 happened. And if knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, right? This bishop is only protected by this knight now. But if the rook was on e8 and this knight retreated, well then it would simply be a trade. So by knowing that that was going to happen, what move do I suggest? Rook f to e8, just protecting that bishop. And contrary to before, I'm giving myself additional protection. But that didn't happen in the game. Queen c8 happened in the game, and after knight to d5, what happened was queen to a8, so our friend Aron just followed through with his idea. It was completely fine, but knight takes pawn. Queen to c8, knight back. I'm not doing much. I'm saying, I'm inviting that if you take, pawn takes. Bishop takes g5, d takes c6, bishop takes c6, queen takes a7. I'm saying if you bring your bishop back, I'm going to take the pawn on b6, and all of a sudden, I have two passed pawns. And first of all, black is sort of thinking, how do I get back those two pawns, right? And the truth is that you don't really get back those pawns with great play. I mean, it takes mistakes from white's end to get back those pawns, but you just have to assume that those pawns are going to be lost. You need to find some way to try to get them back. So I would say that was my intention, right? I wanted our friend to take on d5, but what happened instead was h6. And after h6, I had a few moves. Number one, I could have played bishop takes f6. Number two, I could have played knight takes e7. Number three, I could have played maybe b5 as to threaten this knight. So there were many options. But what did I choose? I chose what I felt was most straightforward. Bishop takes f6. Saying if bishop takes f6, knight takes f6, and here our friend played king to h8. And in the game, our friend Aron said he saw that this move is the right move, but he didn't take it for one reason. It's because he felt that this pawn structure would be too damaging. He is partially right. However, this knight is very important, right? This knight, it's very important to capture back. I mean, the worst case is you bring this knight to g6 and it sort of self-builds the pawn structure, right? So I get it, a pawn structure is a problem. But if you sacrifice your own bishop, that may be too much for the pawn structure, right? Your pawn structure is just, it's something temporary, right? You might be able to go f5, king h7, rook to g8, but giving up a knight for that, that was probably not a great decision. So after knight h4, I said, please, take my knight. I'm giving you a chance. But our friend played g6, and I was like, ah, no. Our friend Aron just doesn't want the knight. So after e3, queen to b8, our friend resigned because the knight's in the air, and it's just not looking great. So, what can we learn from this game? Well, we could say that for one, I mean, I'm not sure if b6 is the best move here. I think d5 is the main line, and after bishop g2, knight to b6, right? Knight to f3, bishop to e7. This is a main line. This is one way to play it, but b6, I don't know if this is the way to play it. But all I know is that I got pressure, I got initiative. You can sort of see that this bishop and knight, they're restricted in a sense. They're not exactly doing much just yet. I mean, after the rook, maybe after it protects this bishop and knight d4 gets in, then black is going to have a good time. But after bishop to g5 and the bishop and the knight, they sort of didn't really help with the cramping of the pieces, right? You saw that these guys were sort of helpless when it came to the pin, and then you saw that this bishop performed a sort of indirect but also active role when it came to attacking pieces. So knight takes c7, and I ruined the pawn structure, so always remember that, even though the pawn structure is going to be ruined here, there's ways to repair it. There's ways to put a piece in. There's ways to make it look like it's brand new. So don't worry about the pawn structure too much, but know that it can affect the game's result. It's just in some situations it matters more than others. In this situation, it wasn't wise to give up a bishop for nothing. And here, our friend resigned. So that was pretty well played by Aron. Just a few mistakes. Maybe the setup for the English with the b6, the bishop here and the knight here, it provided a cramped area than it was for giving space and for gratitude. It was more like I'm creeping in my burrow, I'm not going to come out until later. And that's the vibe it gave me, but it just came up short. So, hope you have fun, hope you have curiosity, hope you like this video, and please feel free to enjoy yourself.